Welcome back everyone. In this tutorial, we'll be creating an expandable item list using Jetpack Compose in Android. For this feature, you can display a list of items that expand to show more content when clicked. So let's get started. Okay, so first we have to define a data class called content, which represents each item in our list. It contains an ID, a title, and a description. Additionally, we have constants for the expansion animation duration. And a placeholder text for containing our golem text ipsum. So you can easily just copy this and paste them inside here. Okay, so now the expandable card composable function takes in three parameters: the content, expanded, and the onClick expanded. So the content represents the item's content, expanded indicates whether the item is currently expanded or not, and the onClick expanded is a callback function that gets invoked when the item is clicked. So inside the composable function, we define a transition using the update transition function. This transition is responsible for animating in the expanded state. We set the target state of the transition to the value of the expanded parameter. Next, we define two animated values using the transition.animateFloat and transition.animateColor. The animateFloat function animates the rotation of the arrow icon, while the animateColor function animates the background color of the card. For the rotation animation, we assign the value of icon rotation degree using a conditional expression inside the lambda. So inside the lambda function, if the state is true, such that the item is expanded, the rotation is set to 0 degrees, which is going to point the arrow up. Otherwise, if the state is false, such that the item is not expanded, the rotation is set 180 degrees. Similarly, for the color animation, we assign the value of color. A conditional expression inside the lambda function. If the state is true, we set the color to the semi-transparent black color, which is going to be 0.0f. Otherwise, if the state is false, we use the default surface color from the theme, which is just materialTheme.colors.surface. So inside the card composable, we set the background color of the card to the color value defined by the animation. We arrange the content inside the column, and we apply a padding to sides using a modifier padding and provide a horizontal DP of 16. Within the column, we have a row, so that contains the title and the arrow icon. So the title is displayed using the text composable, and the arrow icon is displayed using the icon composable from the material design icons. We set the rotation of the arrow icon using the rotate modifier, and the icon rotate degree as the value for the animation. So the arrow icon is also made clickable by using a clickable modifier, which invokes the onClick expanded callback when clicked, and we pass in the particular ID of that item. Finally, we have to add a spacer with the size of 16 dp to create some space between the title and the expanded content. So we are going to create the expanded content in a moment. Okay, now let's create the expandable composable. So the expandable content composable function is responsible for displaying the additional content of an expanded item. It takes two parameters, is expanded and the description. So its expanded indicates whether the item is currently expanded, and the description represents the description of the additional content to be displayed. So inside the composable function, we define two transitions, the enter and the exit transition. This transition controls how the content enters and exits the screen when the item expands or collapses. We use the expand vertically and shrink vertically animation modifier to create vertical expansion and shrinkage effects. And respectively, we set the expand from and shrink toward parameters to align top to ensure the content expand or collapse from the top. For both the enter and exit transition, we also include fade animation using the fade in and fade out modifiers. This provides a smooth transition in opacity as the content appears or disappears. We use the initial alpha parameter of the fade in to set the initial opacity to 0.3f, giving a slightly faded effect to the newly expanded content. To apply this transition, we wrap the text composable with the animated visibility composable. So the animated visibility composables allow us to control the visibility and apply enter and exit transition to its content based on the visible parameter. So the visible parameter is set to the value of is expanded, which determines whether the additional content should be visible or hidden. When is expanded is true, the content is visible, and the intertransition animation are triggered. Inside the animated visibility composable, we display the text composable, which represents the description. We also apply the text align to text align justify modifier to ensure the text is justified within its container. Okay, now let's jump inside our own create function. So inside the code segment, we start by defining a immutable state variable called the expanded item. It is responsible for tracking the current expanded item in our list. By default, we initialize it with a value of -1, indicating that no item is expanded initially. Then inside the surface, we define a lazy column. The lazy column is vertically scrolling list that efficiently handles large datasets by only composing and displaying the visible items on the screen. So within the lazy column, we use the items composable to iterate over the content list, which we have not created, and let's create it now. So above the onCreate method, we are going to create a variable that is called the content list. And inside here, we're going to create a list of content, and basically we're going to provide an ID, a title, and also we are going to provide the placeholder text. That is going to be the description, which we have created here, the Lauren text. And for that case, we are going to create 5 variables, which we are going to use inside our lazy column. Okay, so inside our lazy column, we use the items composable to iterate over the content list, which represent the list of items we want to display for each content. We call the expanded cat composable inside there to provide it for each item. So the expanded cat composable is responsible for rendering an individual expandable item. We pass the content object, the expanded state of the item, and the onClick expanded callback function as a parameter. So the expanded parameter is determined by comparing the expanded item with the current content ID. If they match, it means that the current item is expanded, and we set the expanded to true. Otherwise, we set it to false. So the on-click expanded callback function is invoked when the user clicks on the item to expand or collapse it. So inside the callback, we check if the clicked item is already expanded. If it is, we set the expanded item to -1, indicating that we want to collapse the item. Otherwise, we set the expanded item to the ID of the clicked item, expanding it while collapsing any previous expanded item. Now, let's take a moment to see the result of this code segment in action. So when we run our application, we are not getting the correct view. So we have a problem. As you can see, everything is not looking perfectly. So how can we fix this? Now let's jump inside our code and see the problems which we have. So as you can see here, we are not calling the expanded content. So we can easily jump inside our expanded card, and below the SKSAT, we are going to call the expanded content. Then inside the expanded content, we're going to pass in is expanded to the expanded value, and the description to the content.description in order to pass in the description. Okay, now let's try to rerun again our application and see the changes. Now, as you can see here, our application is looking perfectly and well organized. So for this case, we have fixed our errors. And guys, that's it for today's tutorial. We have learned how to create an expandable item list in Android using Jetpack Compose. I hope you find this tutorial helpful. So for now, let's leave it here.